Okay, today I'm going to ask you to think very deeply on your own. I'm not leading you. Usually I kind of like take you down a path and let you discover something. We write words on the board. We find patterns. Today you're on your own. So you got to put on your thinking caps. Okay, I asked you to take everything off your desk. Some of you came in a little late from another class. So take everything off your desk. You just need a pen or a pencil. Okay, I'm going to give you a packet, and in this packet it's going to be like many packets we received. It's going to take you through the steps of writing an essay. So we're going to talk about that in just a bit, but before we do that, we have to look at the poem. Okay, let me pass it. Okay, now that you have the packet, I want you to kind of look through it. Look at each page, kind of just peruse the pages, and see if if it looks familiar. Okay, so look at each page. Nod your head if some of this looks very familiar. So I'm not throwing you off the deep end right now, am I? Okay. I like to torture you, but not that much. Okay, Colton's shaking his head no. Oh yeah, that does look a little unfamiliar. The grade scale is a little bit different. I'll talk about that later. All right, let's turn to page 3 in the packet. What do you find on page 3? The poem. The poem is called what?
Identity.
Okay, what is identity? What do you think of when you hear the word identity? Who you are. Is it the shirt I'm wearing? Well, sometimes it is, right? What else is it?
Your personality.
Personality. So it's the shirt I'm wearing plus my personality. What else? Right, okay, what you think of yourself. Very good. So it's all encompassing who a person is, right? And so this title gives us a hint about the poem. But you know what? Julio, Naboa, Polanco, who's the writer, he's about to throw you a curveball. And that's a baseball metaphor, meaning, oh my gosh, that's a weird pitch. It's going to be a little bit weird coming at you. Have I read you other poems this year where you thought, oh my gosh, that poet's a crazy nut?
Yeah.
And then by the time we look at the poem carefully, we realize what about the poet?
He's still a nut.
No, he's not still a nut. He or she is actually pretty insightful. I mean, if you think about the poem The Possessive and the really cool motifs used in the possessive poem, or the poem Black Valentines in the really cool motifs, the lake water motif, you think that's insightful. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the poem aloud. You follow along. Let me put on my glasses. Identity. Let them be as flowers, always watered, guarded, admired, but harnessed to a pot of dirt. I'd rather be a tall, ugly weed, clinging on cliffs like an eagle, wind wavering above high, jagged rocks, to have broken through the surface of stone, to live, to feel exposed to the madness of the vast, eternal sky, to be swayed by the breezes of an ancient sea, carrying my soul, my seed, beyond the mountains of time or into the abyss of the bizarre. I'd rather be unseen, and if then shunned by everyone, than to be a pleasant-smelling flower growing in clusters in the fertile valley where they're praised, handled, and plucked by greedy human hands. I'd rather smell of musty green stench than of sweet, fragrant lilac. If I could stand alone, strong and free, I'd rather be a tall, ugly weed. Okay, nod your head if you kind of get the idea of what you think Polanco thinks about life. Okay, read the poem again to yourself. Okay, read it to yourself silently. We're going to remember back. Do you remember when we read the poem The Possessive and I had to ask you, what's going on in this poem? And someone in here said, it's about a girl that went to get a haircut and her mom's having a cow about it. Do you remember that? So that's literally what was going on in that poem. But was there more in that poem than that? The metaphors added more to that poem. Okay, then I asked you this question in Black Valentines, what this poem about? And somebody in here said it's about a father who comes home drunk, and the mom gets mad at him and even hits him, and then there's a fight, and then the kid kind of hears it all, and he actually kind of anticipates it every night, this same thing that happens, and the dad comes home another night and he's throwing up in the toilet, and the mom soothes him, and the kid goes to sleep, right? Literal level. Okay, literally, he's describing what in this poem? What is he literally describing? No. We're not analyzing the poem. What is he literally describing in this poem? Flowers and what? Weeds. Flowers and weeds. Okay, now, to understand poems literally, sometimes we might need to know certain vocabulary or understand certain pictures of things. Okay, any words in this poem you need me to tell you the definition or explain them to you? Raise your hand if you see any words in this poem you'd like to know. Yes? All. Okay, all of them won't work. Yes? Abyss. It's a deep, dark place, sometimes in like the ocean. A never-ending like hole. It could be in space. It could be in the ocean. It's kind of this really cool, unexplored, maybe huge area. Yes? Lilac. Good question. Someone asked me this earlier. It's a type of flower. I used to pass by it when I walked home from school, and I could smell it like 2 blocks away. That's how pungent and strong a lilac bush is. Have you ever seen grape clusters? Okay, it's a flower that looks like that, but it's not grapes. It's a flower that looks like it's hanging down and they're purple too. You've never seen those? Okay.
There's like a really pretty purple.
They're beautiful, and they're strong though. They're beautiful and they're strong smelling, overpowering even. Any other words you need to know? Someone asked in another class, bizarre.
Crazy. Yeah.
Huh? Okay, maybe you know bizarre. What does bizarre mean?
Crazy.
Kind of crazy and wild. Wind wavering. I mean, I think it's like it's wavering in the wind. Okay, yes?
Ancient sea.
Ancient sea. Why ancient? Well, that might just be kind of descriptive, but how old is the sea? Ocean. It's ages and ages. If you think about, if you've ever been on like a ship and you think about that water and how long it's been there, and oh my gosh, it's just amazing to think about, the boats that have traveled over it. When I was in Greece this summer, oh my gosh, we'd showed up, to Patmos, and it was really bizarre and cool to walk on the road up to the cave where John wrote the Revelations, the last book of the Bible, and we went into the cave, and I'm like standing there, and I'm like, this is what his eyes could see. And so you look out on an ocean the same way. It's like, oh my gosh, who has been on this ocean? It's kind of interesting to think about, sometimes. I like to do that when I travel. Okay, let's talk about this. To have broken through the surface of stone. Literally, have you ever seen a plant or something grow out of stone?
Yes.
It's a tough little sucker, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm amazed. We planted oats and ryegrass in our field. It's coming up pretty good in the field, but do you know where it was growing prolifically? No, in the back of the truck, there was a bed liner, and I guess some dirt had kind of collected over there. And like in the edge of the truck, we had these huge pieces of rye and oats growing, like a chunk of plant over there growing in the back of the truck. It was living better than the ones out in the field. It was just... I know. Well, no, this is our ranch truck. The only washing it's going to get was the rain the other day. So you know what I'm saying? It's just a messy old truck. And boy, that little weed there was thriving. You know what I'm saying? So have you ever seen, like when I was in Greece especially, and I'm imagining this to be true in many parts of the world, rocky cliffs. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen plants growing out the side of a rocky cliff?
I've seen trees.
And trees and bushes. I mean, and they're living. And just think, like if you were a plant, wouldn't it be cool to live there instead of in a field? Yeah. Looking at that ocean, that view of Santorini or Patmos or Rhodes, all these places we went this summer, living right there. If I was a plant, that'd be a cool place to live. It'd be hanging there on that cliff. So beautiful and such a wonderful life. Okay, so here's what I want us to do with this poem. Now that we feel like we understand the poem a little bit and some of the wording in the poem, we are going to annotate it. Okay? So I want you to, how would you separate this poem? It's talking about what things? Flowers and weeds. So does it seem logical to maybe have at the top of yours weeds and flowers? Do you agree? Let me flip this around. That I'm going to talk about on one side, I'm going to annotate for the metaphors and the images about flowers, and the other side about weeds. So when you look at the words, let them be flowers, you think of pretty, neat, dainty, fragile. But let's look at the next line. Always watered, guarded, admired. What does that make you think of? Domesticated, kind of cared for, and say it again. Say it one more time. Nurtured, good. High maintenance, they require a lot of maintenance. You know, I buy flowers each spring, and I plant them in these pots, and they're a pain in the butt. I mean, seriously, they go a day without water, and they're like drooping, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my $10 flower, I got to go water it. You know, and I've got to, give it some, special nutrients too, and this and that. And I'm like moving it from the sun to the shade so it doesn't burn. I mean, these are pain in the butt little flowers, but they're beautiful. And I like them. But the weed out in the back is like, it hadn't been watered in weeks. It's growing beside a rock, and the tractors run over it 3 times. And which one's growing better? The weed. It's like amazing. It's a superhuman weed. It's amazing how this weed survives. But I
need to genetically modify a weed mixed with a flower.
Hey,
so the flowers will grow really well.
We'd be millionaires. We need to do that. You get on that, and I'll help sponsor you, and you'll pay me a 50% commission, right? Okay, very good. Now you're writing down all the flower annotation on the right side, and on the left side, you're writing down all the weed annotation, okay? All right. Okay, I need you to pause with your annotation for just a moment. Put your pen down. Okay, because I know some of you are really getting into this, but I want those that are ready to be able to move on, okay? So I'm gonna show you something. Today, you're going to write an essay about this poem. We've not written a full essay except for the important person paper, okay? Now, I'm gonna show you the structure of the essay, and I'm gonna see if you understand it, okay? Structure of the essay. What's the first paragraph? Introduction. Every essay has an introduction. What's the last paragraph? The conclusion. Every essay has both of those parts. Now, every essay also has a thesis. Where does it go? At the end of what? The introduction paragraph. Show me your arms what the introduction paragraph looks like. Okay, say it out loud. Broad to specific, and then what's the last thing? Thesis. Okay, thesis. Okay, so we've got the introduction and the conclusion paragraph. I think y'all know those. What's in the middle? Body paragraphs. Now remember, a thesis, when it has babies, does it ever have just one baby? No, it has 2. Okay, so this essay is going to have twins, so 2 topic sentences. Who can tell me how you think you might subdivide this essay? Go ahead, Kat.
You could do one body paragraph about flowers and one about weeds.
Sounds good to me. If you have another idea, come see me. But that sounds good.
You could do the pros and cons of each one.
You could. It might get a little tricky, but you sure could.
For each of the CD and CNs, you could do a pro for the CD up here and then a con for the CD down here.
Okay. All right. So you've got ideas of how you could subdivide your essay. Now, do these body paragraphs look familiar? What's familiar about them?
We've seen them before.
Okay, the chunks in the middle, topic sentence, chunk, closing sentence, right? Got it? Okay. All right, so I think you understand what you're going to accomplish here. You'll end up with a 4-paragraph essay. It tells you use your bright yellow using concrete detail sheet to reference how to use textual evidence, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Okay, the day I gave you candy and we filled that out. That'll be a helpful handout. You want to write in third person, no I, me, we, or us, and no you or your. So if you're writing a thesis, you don't want to say, Polanco believes that you should. That would be second person. You want to say, Polanco believes that people would be third person, okay? You don't want to say Polanco believes that I, that's first person. You could say Polanco believes that one. One is also third person,
Do we
okay?
have to put like a person there? Could we do like
Or
Polanco
believes that flower.
like a verb, like living?
Yes, you can do that too. You definitely can. Okay, so here's the prompt. How does Julio Naboa Polanco, I forgot the last name, use imagery and figures of speech to reveal his opinion about life? Now, I want you to write a sentence there. What do you think he thinks about life? Go, right there. What do you think his opinion is about life? After you've written this, you kind of see you've already kind of developed a thesis, haven't you? What you think he's trying to prove in this poem, right? So let's fill in the thesis together, okay? Julio Naboa, could you add his last name right there, Polanco? I forgot. Could you write it right there in the thesis? Okay, now fill in the sentence below and it will become your thesis. Julio Naboa Polanco, comma. Now we're going to write in a positive phrase about Polanco. What is he? An author, a writer, a poet, a man, okay, a human being. Okay, so rename him something. A brilliant poet, an insightful man, a powerful writer, whatever you'd like, write it in that blank right after Julio Naboa Polanco, comma, write your positive phrase, and then it'll end with a comma, and then we're going to fill in the rest of the sentence together. Reveals in his poem identity that, and I'll talk about that part. After you've added your positive phrase, now let's fill in the thesis, the opinion part. You could take what you just wrote up here and just write it down here using third person. Instead of saying, I think he thinks this about life, you could just say, reveals that, and then you can just fill in there. What does he really think about life? Yes?
That living shut.
No, don't say it, because I want your answer to stay in your head. I don't want it to seep into other people's minds. I want it, when I read your essay, I want it to be your brilliant thoughts, no one else's, okay? All right, so tell me what you think he thinks about life. I'm going to give y'all kind of an idea right now. Sometimes I don't write the introduction paragraph first. Is that crazy?
Yes.
I'll have my thesis, so I really know what my whole essay is going to be about, but I wait to write my intro, and I go ahead and I write my two body paragraphs first, and then what's the benefit of that maybe? Why is that okay? Perhaps may not be easy, but but that's a good answer. What do you think?
Maybe so once you do the body paragraphs, you can go back and like write it based on your body.
Right, and also you won't want to say anything in the introduction you've kind of already said somewhere, but where do you really want to put the strongest points in your essay? In your body, because this is where I'm looking to see that you can prove yourself, right? So here's what's due by tomorrow, your two body paragraphs. Okay, your two body paragraphs are due by tomorrow. Tomorrow when you come into class, you can write your intro and your conclusion, and bingo, you're going to start typing. Okay, but your two body paragraphs are due by tomorrow. So, here's what I want you to do first, right? That's your thesis. I want you to draw a little arrow from it down to the bottom of your conclusion or your introduction paragraph, so you know that your thesis goes at the end of it. Now, these instructions read that your introduction paragraph is going to be really short, broad to specific, talk about life, and then eventually move down to your thesis. Okay, but right now I highly suggest you start writing your body paragraphs. Okay, so your topic sentences will be opinion statements just like your thesis, and then you can start defending it with your chunks. Okay? Why did I have you number the lines in the poem?
You could tell.
Parenthetical documentation, so you can document where that line came from in the poem. So where will your CDs come from? They have to be quoted textual evidence. Can you start your sentence with a quote, or do you have to introduce it? You always introduce it. I get like crazy angry if you just drop a quote in there without an introduction. Okay, so you don't want to do that to the person grading your paper. Yes?
Can we change the order of the CD and CMs?
Yes, if you want to do a CM, CD, CM, you just rewrite it right in there to make yourself happy. Because as long as you have those parts, I'm happy. Okay, let's get started. You can come see me if you need help.